James Dean was a cultural icon and famous 1950s actor whose Hollywood status was cemented through his movies Rebel Without a Cause, East of Eden, and his final movie, Giant. Famously, he was also the first actor to receive a posthumous Academy Award nomination. Dean is not only famous for his good looks and rebellious attitude, but his fast lifestyle, and the death it led to. A year before his untimely death, Dean took to auto racing as a serious hobby. While he had always had a fascination with fast cars, his success as an actor allowed him to purchase even faster and more expensive cars, like the Triumph Tiger and the Porsche Speedster. He was good at handling the cars. At the Palm Springs road races in March 1955, he took first place in the novice event and second in the main event. He continued to collect top-tier finishes in other races around the state. Dean even continued to race throughout that spring, until Warner Brothers Studios forbid him from racing while Dean was working on movies. Dean then spent the summer of 1955 shooting scenes for Giant, though his mind was clearly still focused on racing. During the filming of Giant, Dean had put down a deposit on a brand new Lotus Mark 9. He was then informed the delivery of the supercar would be delayed. On September 21st, just as Dean was finishing Giant, he abruptly traded his Porsche Speedster for the new 1955 Porsche 550 Spyder and registered for the Salinas Road Race, set to take place the first 2 days of October. While Warner Brothers had forbidden Dean from racing during production, they had not forbidden him from racing between projects, and it appeared Dean was going to make the most of the break between movies. The car was nicknamed Little Bastard, although sources dispute whether this nickname came out of a fondness for a personal nickname or bitterness towards studio executives. The purchase of the Spyder is where the legend and the curse begin. Just after purchasing the car, James Dean had a coincidental dinner meeting with Alec Guinness, the actor who would go on to play Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original Star Wars movies. Recalling the encounter, Guinness said, "Some strange thing came over me, some almost different voice, and I said, 'Look, I won't join your table unless you want me to, but I must say something. Please do not get into that car, because if you do,' and I looked at my watch, and I said, 'If you get into that car at all, it's now Thursday, 10 o'clock at night, and by 10 o'clock the next night, Thursday, you'll be dead if you get into that car.'" The following Thursday, James Dean died in a violent auto wreck in that very same car. In order to prepare for the Salinas Road Race, and at the urging of his German mechanic Ralf Wuderich, James Dean drove the Porsche from Los Angeles to Salinas, often driving excessively fast. At 3:30 on September 30th, less than 2 hours before the fatal crash, Dean was ticketed for speeding by the California Highway Patrol. At approximately 5:15 on U.S. Route 466, a 1950 Ford Tudor was turning left in an intersection ahead of the Spyder. Dean was unable to stop and collided with the driver's door of the Ford, throwing Wuderich from the Spyder. One witness, John Robert White, claimed to have seen the car cartwheel at least 2 or 3 times across the pavement before it finally came to rest in a ditch beside the road. The collision was violent. Dean's left foot was crushed between the clutch and the gas pedal, his neck broken, his jaw broken in several places, both arms also broken, with many other internal and external injuries found later by the coroner. A witness to the crash with nursing experience stopped to try and help Dean immediately after the crash, and while she said she found a weak pulse, death appeared to have been instantaneous. Ejected from the car, Wuderich survived, though his jaw and femur were also badly broken. The driver of the Ford, who was determined to have no fault for the crash, suffered only a broken nose and facial lacerations. On its own, the crash and horrifying death of James Dean was a tragedy, but the story doesn't end there. While still filming Giant, Dean had participated in a public service announcement about driving safely, imploring drivers to follow the rules of the road, and imploring drivers specifically to avoid speeding like he was the day of the crash.
Yeah. One more question.
Do you have any special advice for the young people who drive?
Take it easy driving. The life you might save might be mine. You know?
If the eerie foreshadowing of the public service announcement wasn't enough, the Spider apparently went on to continue a career of misery after the collision. George Barris was the Spider's final owner and a previous acquaintance of Dean's. He acquired the damaged and twisted remains of the Porsche after a doctor had already removed the transmission for use in his own racing car. The body of the car was a total loss, and it was sold through a scrapyard where it was then parted out. When salvageable parts were being removed, the frame slipped off the jack and broke a mechanic's leg. Many of the parts went into racing cars owned by Dean's former racing rivals who loved and could afford the same high-power luxury cars that he did. A Dr. McHenry allegedly had the engine installed into his car, or at least part of the engine, and was killed in a racing accident when he collided with a tree. In the same race, a Dr. Eschrid was injured in a rollover. His car contained the drivetrain from the wrecked Spider. 2 salvageable tires were also sold from the Spider and blew out simultaneously on an easy drive with their new owner. Thieves who approached the parted-out car one night, hoping to steal the blood-stained seat and steering wheel as high-end, if not macabre mementos, received serious lacerations. They were not successful in stealing anything. The remains of the Spider went on the road as a traveling attraction, bringing even more misfortune with it. Barris didn't want the car to go traveling initially, but the California Highway Patrol insisted that the car would be a valuable tool in educating the public about the importance of road safety, so he relented, and off the Spider went. Allegedly, fires started in and around the car at random. A garage holding the Spider partially burned down, but left the twisted heap of metal untouched. While on exhibit at a high school, the Spider slipped off its stand, injuring a nearby student. The story of the Spider ends in 1960. The car was placed into a sealed boxcar in Florida and hauled by train back to Los Angeles. George Barris signed the manifest, verifying that the seal was unbroken and the boxcar had been safely returned, but when he opened the container, the Spider was gone. Some say the Spider was lost intentionally by Barris, as it was losing its profitability. Some point to its disappearance as another element of the car's possible curse or haunting. Barris offered $1 million to anyone who could produce the Spider, and though a few individuals and museums have claimed to have pieces or hidden the car on premises, nothing of the Spider has ever been found, apart from the pieces that were removed early on. Known by serial number and registration documents, the original engine of the Spider is still in the possession of the family of the racer it killed. The transaxle assembly passed into the hands of a collector. But anything else has now been lost to time, and the legend of James Dean's Spider lives on.